Hello everyone and welcome to another episode. My name is Quinn Noble and today we're going to be talking about Spider-Man the video game. Which Spider-Man the video game, you might ask? Actually, none of these. Today we're going to be talking about Spider-Man the arcade machine, which was published by Sega in 1991. So sit back, relax, and let's jump into it. Welcome to Spider-Man the video game. This is a 4-player beat 'em up, but unfortunately I only have footage with 1 player, and that's because I have no friends. Just kidding, I have 91 subscribers and I love each and every one of them very much. Which reminds me, if you're new here and you like the content, consider subscribing as we approach 100 subs. Anyway, this is a simpler beat 'em up as there are only 2 buttons, jump and attack. You have 4 players to choose from, and each one has their own special move you can execute by hitting both buttons together. Selectable characters include the obvious Spider-Man with his web-slinging action, Hawkeye with his bows and arrows, Black Cat with her claw whip attack, and probably my favorite, Namor the Submariner, who has a very powerful electric shock. You have to love a superhero in a Speedo. And speaking of bathing suits, my love for this game comes from playing it at a water park in Tampa, Florida called Adventure Island. Back in the 90s, they had these annual passes for around $100, and I have to give credit to my old man because instead of sending my sister and I to summer camp, he bought us these passes and dropped us off at the water park while he worked. When I got bored of the water slides and swimming, I would spend my time in the arcade, and this must have been my favorite game in that arcade because I don't remember any of the other ones. My dad would pack us lunches and I would always ask for a couple bucks to spend in the arcade, but that was never enough to beat Spider-Man the video game. A little more on that later. One thing that separates this game from the other beat 'em ups is how it switches to a 2D platformer. The game slows down a little when this happens, but it's still a cool feature. Most of the enemies you fight are these masked characters. Other than that, there are some thugs, some henchmen dressed like Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, and some monkey men. There is no shortage of Marvel villains in this game either. You have an abundance of familiar faces like Venom, the Green Goblin, Doc Octopus, there's the Scorpion, Kingpin makes an appearance, Hobgoblin, the Lizard, the Sandman, there's Dr. Doom, and my favorite, Electro. Electro is my favorite because I did a cosplay of him once. I even got to take a picture with the late great Stan Lee. Getting to meet Spider-Man's creator was one of the greatest days of my life, and this game kind of shaped me for that. One reason I was drawn to this game in the arcades is the fact that it feels like you are controlling a comic book come to life. You can tell that the developers of this game were heavily inspired by the comics. The background art looks like it came straight out of a Marvel comic book. The large animated villains are another reason why I was so enamored by this game in the first place. Most beat 'em up games have medium characters. These characters are bigger and taller. It makes you feel more powerful. I love the use of the dialogue bubbles like "sweet dreams" or "good night." I also love the way they pair the words with the sound effects like "vok" or "thwip." It makes it feel as if you were in the driver's seat of a Spider-Man comic, and to a young dreamer like me, that's exactly what I wanted. Thank you, Sega. If you compare Spider-Man the video game to some of the other beat 'em up games from the 90s, this game's controls are not the greatest. I found myself having a hard time pulling off the jump kick attack. It just doesn't feel very natural. Each character also has an aerial attack that can be completed by hitting the attack button at the peak of your jump. This move is even harder to pull off. I think that the bad controls may be from the game switching from 3D to 2D, but I could be wrong. The 2D controls are a little bit stiff. There is a lot of climbing and jumping, and sometimes it can get confusing where to go. The 3D controls are a little better. I was pondering what it is that keeps bringing me back to Spider-Man the video game. I would have to say that it's the nostalgia factor. When this game came out in the 1990s, I was really into collecting Marvel comic cards, some which I still have. This is where I would really brush up on my knowledge of literally hundreds of Marvel comic book characters. I really don't know of many beat-em-ups that include so many beloved heroes and villains. Did I mention this game was hard? Well, it's not so much hard as it is expensive. This game is what you call a quarter muncher. When I was out of quarters, I would just stare at the demo screen to see previews of the levels that I have never made it to. It will take you at least 20 bucks to get to the end. It's designed to take your money. Just look as your health bar just counts down like a timer. In addition to that, every time you use your special move, your health is taken away. Like I said, this game is designed to take your money. There are 4 levels, and man, these are some long levels. Each one is about 12 minutes long, so it takes just under an hour to beat. I can't fault this game for that, since that is the nature of the arcade beat-em-up. Like most Sega games of this era, Spider-Man the video game has a great soundtrack. I did find out that some corners were cut and a couple of tunes were borrowed from the Sega arcade classic Quartet. They do sound a little different though. One aspect that makes this game feel a little monotonous are the sound effects. Every masked character makes a high-pitched scream when you defeat them. There are more of these masked enemies than any other enemy. There are probably hundreds of them. So that can get pretty annoying after you beat your first 30 masked characters. Also, Black Cat's punch has a very strange sound to it. I do think this game is a ton of fun. There are a handful of these brawler arcade games that I hold dear to my heart, and this is one of them. I would say it's in my top 5 arcade beat-em-ups, but that is another video in itself. This is the type of game you play with a couple buddies, reminisce of some old Marvel comics, and have a good time. No one has to be good at video games to play this, and I do feel the switch to 2D really separates this beat-em-up from the rest of them. If you haven't played Spider-Man the video game, you really should give it a go. If you can't find the actual Spider-Man the arcade game, there are other ways to play it, such as a MAME emulator. I decided to stream this game a few times on my Twitch channel, and I had some nice conversations with some that remember this game and some that have never seen it. Shoutouts to my last 3 followers, Amy is so rad, Monkey Cliff, and OG Snave. It made for some fun nights as I was putting this video together. The link to my Twitch page is in the description. If you have played this game and stumbled across this video for nostalgia reasons, leave your Spider-Man the video game memories down in the comments. Thanks for stopping by. My name is Quinn Noble, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you keep watching them, I'll keep making them. See you next time.